So remember how I said I was going to revisit the last few Smiling Critter Fakemon designs? Yeah, that didn't happen. Tendonitis sucks. Have I mentioned that? It sucks. The urge to draw is strong because the ideas are there, but I know my hand needs some more rest. It's only getting better, sort of, because I'm pacing myself and resting my hand when I feel like I need it. It's probably not getting better, I'm just tolerating the pain more. Who knows? That's a problem for future me. So instead, I'm gonna take a note from me in February and run down my best designs of this year. I can't say that I'll do this every year, but I think for now, talking about what I like about my own art is good for me. I've been so used to speaking negatively about my art, taking the time to talk positively about it is good. I might have said this last time, I don't remember. Anyways, just like last time, this isn't in any particular order. This is just everything that I've made that I was proud of. Starting with the guy that I probably have talked about the most, GlitchxCity. I've said it a lot, but this really is one of my favorite designs. Not just of this year, but in general. I mean, Catnap is still my favorite of the Smiling Critters. Just everything about his design is so good. Not so much the cartoon or plush form, but the huge behemoth form. The long lanky limbs, the eerie grin, the beady white eyes, absolute perfection. Everything about Catnap is what I love about the nightmare critters. Like, I'm not a big horror person, but I like monstrous creature designs. Big claws, sharp teeth, eerie grins. Specifically on animals, like weird, creepy human faces are too much. Looking at you, Jeff the Killer. But yeah, at first I was worried that I didn't do enough to make him look different from what he normally looks like, but as I kept working on him, getting the proportions and pose right, rendering him, it all came together, and I absolutely loved it. I could basically visualize how I wanted him to move and attack if he were actually in-game. It's why I so badly want to sit down and work on some animations for him, and that is an actual goal for the upcoming year. I want to take some of these Fakemon and animate them. I know how I want GlitchxCity's idle animation to look. I know how I want a basic attack animation to look. I even kind of know how I'd want him to sound, and I'm not a voice actor by any means, but I'll give it a shot when I animate him. Not now. Just, everything ended up coming together perfectly. From the design to the name, there's nothing here I didn't end up loving. It's why I'll bring up this design any chance I get. It's one of the things I absolutely loved, and I'm gonna give myself the flowers I deserved on this one. Along the same vein, there's a few other Smiling Critter Fakemon that I ended up loving. Hercules' design ended up being so much fun. It was also one of the designs that gave me the most trouble. I think with this design, I ended up deciding not to incorporate their emblems in a literal sense. I kept trying to figure out how I wanted to fit a sun into his design, and I never thought it fit. I just didn't like how it looked, despite knowing that I wanted him to be a fire type. Unfortunately, I never drew him with his paws fully lit up, but just like with GlitchxCity, I want to make some animations of him. That'll probably just be its own video, like idle and attack animations for a couple of Fakemon, I guess. Either a video or shorts. I don't know. Animation takes a while anyways, and I haven't really done it in years. I want to show off his paws lighting up and stuff. That's just a pretty big part of his design that I never drew. I just alluded to it with his glowing scars. And while I don't necessarily have plans to animate either of these, I do love how Voltage and Bear Brace turned out. Specifically my second try at Bear Brace. Like I said in the Revisiting the Smiling Critters video, I took my time with Voltage and found references for the pose that I liked. I kept playing with the look of the electricity until it looked natural. I knew from the start I wanted this electrifying spiky glowing fur to be part of her design. I knew exactly how I wanted to use her emblem in it. It's why I wanted so badly to try to use each of their emblems in some way, but not all of them worked in a natural or subtle way, and at the moment I couldn't just figure out how to make it happen. Maybe at some point in the future I will, but I was pretty happy with what I was able to make regardless. Speaking of which, dialing up the hearts to 11 with Bear Brace was perfect. Her original design was so bland and lifeless. She was just kind of a generic teddy bear, and because I rushed how I drew her to meet my own deadline, I'll admit I just kinda cut a few corners. Like, look at those nub paws. That was one of the first things I wanted to fix. But I went into detail about what I fixed here, and yeah, I ended up really loving this new version. She has so much personality, and that was what was missing. Moving away from the smiling critters into some of the actual hardest things I designed all year, Pikachu and Eevee evolutions themed around their Go Fest costumes. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't even a little bit upset this video didn't really get much traction. It is what it is, and even though there were some weak designs in there were still a lot of things I designed for it that I thought were strong. Really, I thought about half of the designs were solid, even if they needed a bit of tweaking here and there. Suzakian was one of the ones I thought was the most fun to make. It's the one I had the least amount of park inspiration to work from, and no, I will never let Niantic live down those pitiful poor excuses for decorations. Give people an immersive experience when they pay you to go to your events. The park looked like y'all did a last-minute Party City run and borrowed some set pieces from a high school theater club, and y'all know it. But rant aside, I just worked off pure vibes and it worked out. Who knows if I captured the idea of brilliant skies? I tried and made a pretty sick dual-type evolution. Overall though, Naradion and Familiarion were probably my favorite of the evolutions I made. I just think their designs both embody what evolutions generally look like, and they both embody their respective types. Their color schemes and markings and everything look near perfect. I ended up loving that gold pink cream koi fish scheme on Naradion. It just ended up so cute and elegant, and I probably also really liked it because it is super Vaporeon coded, and I do love Vaporeon. But I also think I made it different enough that it stands on its own. Familiarion grew on me though. I thought I made it too simple at first. Like, there's not really anything super detailed about it. It's pretty much just black and pale blue with a little white. But the wispy ghost tail and the glowing transparent paws ended up really making this design what it is. Same with the slight crescent moon curve of the ears and the light rib-like stripes. It's simple but effective. Simple designs always seem like the hardest ones to nail because the simplicity is very difficult, I guess, to nail down. Like, simple designs are deceptively easy. And that's not to say that some aren't literally simple, like Voltorb is literally a Pokeball with eyes, and Ditto is a blob. But something like Umbreon is what I'd say is a deceptively easy design. There's not a lot of color or markings, it's a relatively smooth creature design, but you can tell there's a lot that went into it. I don't know if that makes sense to anyone but me, but anyways. Basically what I'm getting at is Familiarion was tough to make because of its simplicity. There were points where I wanted to add more detail. I wanted to really play up the moon motifs. I wanted to add more stripes, do more than just a little bit on the forehead and back, but it never looked right, plus it took away from the Kit Chi inspiration. Simple is what it needed to be, and it worked. As for the Pikachu Evos, while I had the most trouble with these, I did end up digging two of their designs. Metachu is just adorable, and I think it's the one that most looks like a plausible evolution for Pikachu that's separate from Raichu. I mean, I won't deny that it also looks very much like Raichu, but regardless, I still like it because it turned out cute. Zatachu though is the design that I think turned out the strongest. There's little things about it that I probably would change, mostly the markings. I just kind of made them very simple. But the tail is one of my favorite details on any of these designs. Making the tip this lightning bolt shaped pickaxe ended up looking way better than I thought it could and turned what was a really generic rodent into something pretty unique and interesting. All in all, these Go Fest themed Fakemon, flawed as they might have been, were some of the things I worked the hardest on. That alongside the Smiling Critter Fakemon were the videos that took the most amount of work. It was a new way to try and combine my enjoyment of Pokemon Go with art, and maybe making costume-based evolutions was a bit out there, but it did give me some ideas for future Pogo-themed Fakemon, so keep your eyes peeled for that in the future. Maybe starting with the Unova tour. We'll see how that turns out. Anyways, there's a few more designs I really liked. Most of them though were in my video on making Fakemon based on my own persona. Since that's a whole video on its own, you can check it out. But all of those designs turned out solid. Papandant and Melancholy were made last year, so not really counting them as 2024 Fakemon, but Marisky and K-Nair were done this year, and overall I think they're a pretty cohesive line. Just like most of my designs, I think there's room for improvement, but for what I was able to do in the moment, they're not bad. And last but not least, there's one more design that I really ended up loving that I haven't shared yet, and it's this guy, Angleur. I decided to design an evolution for one of True Green 7's 2 Fakemon for a contest he held. Originally, I was gonna try to do something for both of them, but 1, I was already pushing my luck with my wrist, and 2, I literally couldn't come up with anything interesting for the normal type other than Numbat Pokemon, so I kinda just left it as it is. But when I looked at the water type, I instantly knew what I wanted to do with it. I mean, granted at the moment, I didn't really realize I was basically making Huntail 2.0, but I mean, what's done is done, and regardless of how similar it is to an already existing Pokemon, that doesn't really take away from the fact that I really liked what I created. When I looked at the first stage, I just saw this small, sort of scared shark-like body with this massive fake fish head for a tail. It just made me think that maybe this Pokemon used its tail to scare away larger predatory fish or to camouflage itself among some other unknown Pokemon species. Now that his video's out, I totally don't know how I missed that the idea was a red herring. It's one of those things that seems really obvious in retrospect. There's so many amazing designs that were featured, so I'm not sad about not getting top 50. I was honestly pretty happy to get an honorable mention. I know this isn't the most fantastical thing, and seeing how other people were really able to expand on the concept, it definitely makes sense. But that doesn't take away from the fact that I still like how this turned out. I'd probably just fix some of the shading, but honestly that's it. Also, Ron called it pretty sick, and I'm gonna take that as a win. There's a decent amount of non-Fakemon art I made this year as well. I mean, I started doing something for every community day, but that fell apart real fast when I needed to start pacing myself better. And I also sewed and spent a decent amount of time making hats, tails, and paws. Overall, I was more creative this year than I have been in past years, and that's a plus. I have a bunch of ideas for what I want to do this coming year, and I can only hope that I can achieve most of it. There's so many more Fakemon I want to make, so many concepts for things I want to sew. Like, I've been mulling over the idea of making Pokeball themed fursuits for a while, and I just really need to sit down and make some designs I like and then jump on that. But for now, it's time to rest and spend time with friends and family, so I hope everyone has a wonderful holiday. I hope everyone gets a chance to rest and recharge, and that's it for now. See you again next year.